Hello lovelies, slightly Jedi looking Grim here with an embarrassing personal admission. I've been suckered and I want to make sure that nobody else gets put into the same position that I've been put into.
Have you been injured in the workplace? Looking for compensation? Frightened of hidden charges? Then call Butterfield Direct, now.
You've probably seen the adverts, the kind of stock footagey feeling ambulance chasing, we're real lawyers, like that's supposed to be reassuring. You've probably seen those adverts on the TV. Have you had an accident at work? Etc, etc. Well, about a year ago now, I was involved in a car accident, and it took a very long time to sort out because there was a whole bunch of issues, and both me and the person who ran into me were part of the same insurance company. So weirdly that made things more complicated rather than less complicated, I guess because the company understood that they'd be footing the bill either way, and so it went on and on and on and on, and to be honest I still don't know how it was resolved, how the blame was resolved. You see, I was going on a roundabout, the signage was obscured by leaves, the markings on the ground were obscured, I wasn't sure which exit I was meant to be taking. Apparently with the lane I was in I should have taken the first one, but didn't, and then as I was carrying on to get to the next exit that I wanted to, this young lad in a BMW second-hand thing that was barely running, I suspect, slammed into the driver's side door from behind. But because that was essentially read as a T-bone rather than what it was, and because I hadn't taken the roundabout correctly, there was a lot of wrangling, and this went on for a very long time, and I still don't honestly know the way it shook out. But I was in an accident. I did suffer some aches and pains. It definitely greatly affected my anxiety when it comes to driving and so on. But yeah, as far as I was concerned, this was put behind me now. And then I got a call.
Lucy Worth was a catering coordinator in a marble factory. She slipped and fell, badly bruising her back and both buttocks. Then she was hit by a dart.
Now, I like to think that I'm a smart and cynical dude. You know, I'm from Gen X. We learned to treat advertising and so on extremely suspiciously. Yeah, I don't think I'm that easy to fool as a skeptic. But on this particular morning, I had misjudged my medication. I've been feeling a bit low and a bit dopey lately anyway, so I was not on top form. Not that that's too much of an excuse. And I get this call. And the first thing out of their mouth is not, "Hello, we're an ambulance chasing company of pseudo-lawyers who want to exploit your situation to make ourselves a couple of grand." No, the first thing out of their mouth was talking about my insurance company, which gave the immediate impression that they were from my insurance company and were following up somehow, and had I suffered any injuries or anything as a result, had I got the money back, all those kind of things. It felt like a follow-up call, at least to begin with. And then gradually, by the time it dawned on me what was actually going on and who this actually was, I'd already been bombarded with questions and things, and had already been kind of suckered into what they were doing. It's like the ball was rolling, the boulder was tumbling down the tunnel, and I no longer had any real control over what was going on because I was just constantly being bombarded with stuff. And drugs or not, depression or not, if they can bamboozle someone like me, imagine what it's going to be like for someone elderly or, you know, not that intelligent or skeptical in the first place.
His understanding of legal proceedings seemed very poor. When we were in court, he asked me, "What does litigation mean?" And I said, "Well, we're doing it. That's what we're doing now."
So I kind of got swept up in it all. I know I appear to have quite a forceful personality, I suppose a big personality, a rebellious personality, a contrarian personality, but I'm not good on the phone. I'm not good in social interactions. The internet is a space I can control to an extent. Text is a format which I can control. YouTube is a format which I can control and edit and do retakes or whatever. When you're live on the phone with someone and they're in full banter mode and they're bombarding you with stuff, it's a lot more difficult to halt the train and you know, enter in any notes of caution or whatever. I mean, they're there to feed you the script, to get you to agree to this, that and the other, and it all kind of snowballs up into something, and they're very leading. This is where the dishonesty comes in, and you know, I could use the money. It's been a tough month financially. I've spent a lot without a lot coming in due to various things going wrong or breaking or whatever else. You know, a couple of grand from a settlement would be nice. Only, you know, they take a quarter of that as fees, even though they say no win, no fee, and they also charge you insurance in case costs is awarded against you, which is another £300. So you're looking at losing about a third of what you might make anyway. But then they start leading you into what you need to say. You need to be sufficiently injured to get some compensation, but not so injured that a full medical checkup is required, and they tell you what to say to the solicitor. So it's the claim firm has a solicitor's firm attached to them. They refer you to the solicitor after having coached you on what to say. Now, I did have aches and pains. Was it for 5 or 6 months? I can't remember. It was over a year ago. Did it affect my depression and anxiety? Yeah, it sure did. Whose fault was it? I still don't know. I don't consider it to be my fault. I consider it to be a combination of faults of the other driver, who was going too fast at night round a roundabout, and the council for not maintaining the roads properly. But that's just me. I still don't know what the insurance company settled that as, but I got bombarded through all of this, coached in what to say, and was incredibly nervous and anxious, and allowed my morals to be compromised by the fact that I could really use a couple of grand. And that's the honest truth to it.
Fair enough. I didn't know that term. But look, I've bought a book, and I promise I'm definitely going to read it on my next holiday.
So I got bamboozled all the way through to the solicitor, and that's when the other shoe began to drop, talking about taking out money as insurance against if it lost, or there was a counterclaim or something, which isn't something they really go into on the adverts on the telly or in the initial phone calls. And more of this coaching, ensuring that I was going to say exactly the right thing, hit that sweet spot where I could get the money but wouldn't have to suffer any particular amount of scrutiny. It's thoroughly dishonest. Now, there are people who get into accidents and so on that do deserve compensation, where companies are negligent, where insurers are negligent, but this isn't really one of those things. But I allowed myself to get caught up in it due to a combination of things, and it's stupid, but you get into a relationship with the person that has called you and is your agent and so on. It's just a job, and probably a very shitty job at that, one that probably takes a toll on most of the people that work there, unless they're psychopaths, in that they're putting in all these fraudulent or semi-fraudulent or at least grey area claims all the time, and you don't want that person to get into trouble. They're probably getting a commission based on the number of calls and so on that they put through. I don't know this guy from Adam, but I would still feel guilty for depriving them of money, of work, of wasting their time. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought that, well, if I'm wasting their time, they're not doing it with someone else. So I kind of justified keeping going a bit to myself by the thought that I can entangle this machine, at least slightly, waste people's time and prevent them getting someone else on the hook. And also, I was waiting for an opportunity where I could contact them in a way that wasn't on the telephone, so that I could put a halt to things. I was going to break up with my agent via text, if you will, the coward's way out.
Paul Ball had a nasty fall when he was frightened by the ghost of his former employer.
As time went on, though, I realised I was really just making excuses for keeping going and keeping the option open. But my conscience really began to bother me, and bringing this all back, dealing with the accident and everything again, really started to trigger my anxiety and depression. And my mental health is worth more to me than a couple of grand gained semi-fraudulently through a scam. And I don't want them to get money from this. I don't want to cause any trouble for the other party who hit me. Young lad, nice enough, made a mistake. You know, so what? I don't want to cause further problems for him. Yeah, so my conscience really began to bother me, and so this morning I've called the whole thing off while my partner is here to answer the phone in case they call and try to pressure me again, because I think if they did call, I might be tempted to cave again and allow things to keep going, and I don't want to do that.
Well, the court found in favour of the ghost, which means that basically when I die, I'll be in debt. In heaven. I think Brian Butterfield is a terrible, terrible lawyer.
So what's the point of all this, other than virtue signalling that I do, after all, have integrity, at least after a while? And it is important to me that my audience knows that and understands that and has reasons to trust me in that I'm being honest and upfront and earnest in what I'm saying. But besides that, I just want people to understand that it is easy to be scammed. There have been high-profile incidents where people on YouTube have advertised products like Candid or BetterHelp that perhaps aren't necessarily the best thing. But it's easy to get caught up and lied to, and then you end up endorsing something or doing something that it later turns out that you don't agree with. And people deserve a degree of forgiveness from us for that, especially considering how much harder things have gotten on YouTube over the last few years. You know, people are a lot more vulnerable to being drawn into things that they wouldn't necessarily have done before, because there's that need, that desire to keep going, to keep doing what they love, but it's got to pay. And so it's easy to get suckered in by these things, or the glitz and glamour of it all, of taking on advertising. So there's that.
That's a bit harsh. Listen, I know I may not be very good, but come on, give me a try. Oh, sorry, love.
The other thing to consider is a lot of this is cold calling, and the law is set to change in April 2020 to make these kinds of claims harder to make, which is good in some ways, bad in others. It will discourage scamming, but people who are genuinely injured, albeit in a relatively small way, may have a harder time of getting the compensation that they are perhaps owed. But what this means in practical terms is that you're likely to get a lot more cold callers trying to inquire if you've been in an accident, or even, like these guys did, a little bit scarily, having all your information about an accident maybe a year ago, maybe even more in some cases. And they'll be really laying on the pressure to try and get you to do this. So if you're in the UK, just be aware that this is going to ramp up until the law changes, because they're going to be trying to get as many claims as possible through in that time. So it's going to get a lot more high pressure, a lot more frequent, a lot more annoying, in much the same way that PPI claims have been. So keep that in mind, be aware when you answer the phone.
Pick up the phone and call, but please, do bear with me. I'm the only one manning the phones. This is just an actress.
Butterfield Direct.
Oh. Sorry.
I guess the last thing to say is it's painful to admit when you've been fooled, when you've been scammed, even if you've pulled back from it, as I have. It's a shameful admission that it got even this far. But I'm sure, even in YouTube's comment section, that people are going to be forgiving and understanding, and so I would ask you to extend that to other people who've been fooled or made bad choices or been misled. And if you're someone who has been conned or fooled or misled in some way, I would encourage you to come forward about it, because at the very least you'll be helping other people not fall for whatever it was that scammed you. Zang.
Call now.
Tell us your habits, your facts, your fears. Give us your address, your shoe size, your years, your digits, your plans, your number, your eyes, your schedule, your desktop, your details.
Horrible what happened today. See, I don't like the, I have, okay, like a lot of you, I hate a lot, you know? But I hate with style and creativity.